It has been more than 6 years since then-candidate Donald Trump paid hush money to an adult film star through his fixer, Michael Cohen. It was just days before the 2016 election, and Stormy Daniels was threatening to go public with the story of their affair. She says it happened a decade prior, just months after Melania Trump had given birth. Now, it's hard to see that scandal, speaking to you today, 2023, through any lens other than the ones we have at the present moment, with the current state of MAGA politics. But it's also worth remembering the context of how those events unfolded at the time. I remember I was here at this desk, because the context is key if prosecutors are going to, in fact, charge the ex-president with a crime. So let's go back to October 2016. We were in the final push of a brutal and surreal campaign. It's just hard to remember how deeply weird it was. And the Access Hollywood tape had just come out. Remember that? Capturing Trump's vulgar discussion about sexually assaulting women. And the backlash was fierce. There were Republicans running around saying how ashamed and how awful it was. Jason Chaffetz coming on our air saying, "I'll never be able to look my daughter in the eyes again if I support Donald Trump." Remember that? And in that moment, there was every reason to believe that another scandal like this one would just be it. I mean, there was reason to believe that that was the end of his campaign. He survived it. But that was pretty close, a near-death experience. I mean, presidential candidate paid hush money to adult film actress to hide affair he had while wife was home with newborn child is a bad headline. That's on October 26th, 2016, a week or two before the election. And so Donald Trump did what in a certain sense is a rational thing, according to Cohen's sworn testimony. He directed Michael Cohen to make the payment $130,000 to bury that news and to keep his chances of winning the election alive. Now, of course, there's a long list of sex scandals in American politics, going all the way back to when Alexander Hamilton didn't know how to say no to Maria Reynolds. And there have been plenty more in recent memory. In the 70s, there was Congressman Wayne Hayes of Ohio. As the Washington Post reported at the time, for nearly 2 years, the powerful chairman of the House Administration Committee kept a woman on his staff who says she is paid $14,000 a year in public money to serve as his mistress. Currently, she is closeted in a luxuriously appointed office in the Longworth House office building behind a blank door. Supposedly, she says, I'm on the Oversight Committee, but I call it the Out-of-Sight Committee. According to Time magazine, Elizabeth Ray chose to tell her story after Hayes decided to marry his second wife and did not invite her. Quote, I was good enough to be his mistress for 2 years, but not good enough to be invited to his wedding, she pouted. That marriage, the second one, actually lasted until the congressman's death, but alas, his career did not survive the scandal.
Wayne Hayes of Ohio has resigned from Congress, effective now. He sent a letter to the Speaker of the House saying that and no more. As reported last night, one of the most powerful members of Congress brought down by Elizabeth Ray.
Well, just to be clear, brought down by his own actions. It wasn't Elizabeth Ray that brought him down, really. Now, then in the 80s, one of the most memorable political sex scandals came from Jerry Springer. Yes, that Jerry Springer, who ran for governor of Ohio in 1982.
I'm Jerry Springer, and I want to be your governor. Now, after sharing some specific solutions for our unemployment and education problems in this state, it looks like the nomination is finally within grasp, which makes what I'm about to tell you even more difficult. Some 9 years ago, I spent time with a woman I shouldn't have, and I paid her with a check. I wish I hadn't done that.
I don't think it was the check that was the problem, although the check was a problem. I mean, I guess if you used a money order or cash. Springer, though, blew up. He came in a distant third in that primary. His political career was over. That was it. Of course, he went on to find some success elsewhere. Then, of course, there was presidential candidate Gary Hart, right, busted on the campaign trail with a mistress. But the closest analogy to Trump, I think, and the Stormy Daniels situation is the John Edwards scandal. In the early 2000s, Edwards was a Democratic star. He had been the vice presidential nominee in 2004 until news broke of his affair with a woman named Rielle Hunter. It was a more extended relationship, continued for years, and here's another fact that didn't look particularly good. Edwards' wife was being treated for breast cancer. Also, the affair resulted in a child. In 2011, Edwards actually faced criminal charges related to the relationship. And here's where it's particularly relevant. Prosecutors said he used money that should have been reported as campaign donations to cover up the affair. The money, more than $1 million, came from some of the top donors to his 2008 presidential campaign, including a 100-year-old heiress named Bunny Mellon. Edwards was acquitted on one charge of campaign finance fraud, while 5 more charges were dismissed, which is to say he was not guilty of the crime that was brought against him. But he was utterly and completely shamed, like just completely flushed out of public life, never to be heard from again. Not just his presidential hopes, his entire political career, all of it, done. But of course, everything changed with Donald Trump. And to be fair, it started changing with Bill Clinton, who had a kind of Gary Hart-like scandal, survived the allegation that he had an affair with Jennifer Flowers during his presidential campaign in '92. But it completely changed with Trump. So much so now, it almost seems like quaint to think that Stormy Daniels' affair would matter one way or the other, that it would even have an effect on his political career. But again, go back to 2016. Remember the context at the time. He had just survived near death after Access Hollywood. Before he won the election, before the cult of Trump basically took over the Republican Party, it would have been 100% rational to view Stormy Daniels as an existential threat to his campaign with just a few days to go before Election Day. That's the context you need to remember. Because again, if he is indicted for this, and it looks like it's probable, we don't know, if prosecutors in Manhattan come forward and say they believe this action was criminal, that was the motive. That's why he did it.